What is up, NFL fans, and welcome back to another and the final for your viewing pleasure podcast of the 2024 season. As Super Bowl 59 is in the books, the Eagles win, the Chiefs lose. Wesley Coleman is back. What's up, Wesley? How's it going?
Doing good. I mean, the game went just like we all predicted, right?
The over. We correctly predicted the over. That
The
was it.
over was definitely shattered.
Man, if you would have said, Jeff, you got to put money down that the Eagles are going to dominate this game. They're going to be up like 40-6 at one point. They're going to put in their backups in a Super Bowl in the fourth quarter, and Kenny Pickett is not just going to take the final snaps, he's going to throw a pass. I'd say you're full of it. Like, there's no way this happened. What's your immediate knee-jerk reactions after the game, though, Wes?
Well, on what you just said, I will say if somebody had told me the final score is going to be 40-22, I would have said it would have been the Eagles. I didn't think it was going to happen, but if any team had a chance to dominate, I thought it was them. This came out, it looked like a team that had won 2 back-to-back Super Bowls, had won 15 games this year. A lot of them one-score games, but just like it had just kind of all, I don't want to say be handed to them, but it all gone their way. And they were just like, well, we're just going to go out there. We'll let the game come to us. And we're just going to end up being the best team. And it looked like a young team that was fired up and was like, we are going to run everywhere as fast as we can, as powerful as we can. And we're just going to all around be more aggressive and better. It's a complete energy difference from the very opening of the game. And honestly, the final score makes it look so much closer than this game was. Like, this was an absolute ass kicking by the Eagles to the Chiefs.
So we'll break this all down. But my question, and it is the title of this podcast, was it a super dud? I mean, in terms of Super Bowls, this was not competitive. I knew in the first half this game was over. The Zach Bond interception, I was like, it's in the red zone. If they punch it in for 7 here, get up 24-0, I think it's done. I don't think the Chiefs can come back from that. And that's exactly what they did. Was this game even, I don't know. I felt like it was a dud. I texted you that last night or after the game. I was like, man, what a dud of a game.
So I don't know. What we're calling dud, like as far as competitive and did the second half matter at all? That would call it a dud. But to me, this was fun. Yeah. Even when the Eagles were up 34-0, I was like, I want to see the shutout. Can they win 50-0? That kind of stuff. And I think they could have scored 50 if they wanted. I think they took the again, Kenny Pickett won the Super Bowl. He did not get the MVP though, right?
Stop it.
So, I thought it was a lot of fun. Now, did anybody watch the fourth quarter? I don't know. It was still on at my house, but by that time I'm scrolling Twitter and paying more attention to that than I was to the game. But I had a lot of fun with this. And I even said, and again, I do not like the Eagles, but I hated this Kansas City Chiefs. What I observed as them being, whether on purpose or not, assisted quite a bit. They had 12 one-score games this year. So they look like a team that could have lost 12 games this year in this game. And so I really did not want to see the Chiefs like play this out and win this. And it's not, I like the Chiefs way more than I like the Eagles. But this went about the way that I wanted. And it's slam the door on any of all the three-peat talk and all that fun stuff. What about you? Like what? So what? Did you turn it off in the fourth quarter? Did you turn it back on when you saw the Kenny Pickett?
I turned the TV off and just started watching on my phone as I was like helping the kids go to bed and stuff. And I was like, if I miss any of this, what am I missing? I missed a Xavier Worthy touchdown, which I heard Tom Brady on the call say, and there you go against the Eagles backups. I'm like, this is where we are. This is a Super Bowl. I just couldn't get over it.
Wait, I do have one question.
What's up?
Okay. When the first big fourth down and AJ Brown gets an it's 0-0. AJ Brown gets offensive pass interference on what's a huge fourth down conversion. That's, definitely leading the Eagles to points to start the game. And everybody loses their mind.
Yeah,
Or
I did.
what I mean, what were you thinking? Were you like, "Oh, no, they're just gonna do it right in front of all of us the whole
My
game?"
my thought was that didn't take long. It didn't take long for the referees to inject themselves into the game. And I said this on Twitter, public forum. You can go back and check it out yourself. I said, as long as they call it both ways. And lo and behold, on the next Eagles drive, Dallas Goedert gets hit late, sign kind of high. And then even Saquon Barkley drew a flag during the game where he got hit late after a play. I think it was by Bolton hit him. And I was like, okay, they're calling it straight up. They're calling it fair. I'm fine with that. It was okay, but I was furious when I saw
Okay.
that pass interference. And people on
Seven
Twitter,
seven
people
penalties
are
on the Chiefs, 8 on the Eagles. And the Chiefs actually had 75 yards to 59 for the Eagles.
okay.
Yeah, no, they called it, but that first call was
Whew.
I was like, they're just gonna do it right here in front of all of us after being called out all year. They're just gonna just keep doing it. Oh,
And it was, the thing is like that's they handcuff offensive players, like defensive players and offensive players. I've always believed that you can have some hand fighting, that's actually like okay. You just can't interfere with the opposition's ability to play the ball. And I didn't feel like he did that there. And everyone's like, well, he can't touch his face mask. Like, but he had already beaten the guy. He didn't shove him to the ground on his face mask. He was already by him, and his hand just swiped his face mask. I just felt like that was a very soft call. I was shocked Tom Brady called him out because he's
yep.
clearly not supposed to do that as a part owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. But even Mike Pereira came in and said, I didn't think that was a penalty. And then they also said that the Dallas Goedert should not have been a penalty either.
Of
So,
course not a
yeah,
penalty at all. Now, and
I'm,
I think
yeah, good.
yes. I mean, I know AJ Brown touched his face, but they were both hitting. Like the player hit AJ Brown's arm. AJ Brown, his arm went back, and he just swung it back over.
Right.
I mean, it was hand fighting where like his finger sort of barely touched his face. It
Yeah.
had nothing to do with the play.
But I'm glad that this is all we're talking about for the officials. Like that's it. After that play, I was like, okay, they just called it straight
And it's
up.
done. Right.
There was some people will probably complain, even though Elliott still made the 48-yarder and not the 43-yarder because of the offsides call, whatever. It wasn't a factor. So I think I said this last week on this podcast that all I want is a game where I don't talk about the officials. And that's not really where our attention should be.
Right.
I think personally, Andy Reid, for as much love as he gets as a coach, as a play caller, as a schemer, he had no answer for what the Eagles were doing. Wesley, they blitzed 0 times. They did not blitz him once.
Yep.
It was front forward with like max protection,
Well,
and they were still getting home.
And taking it further, like just so 0 blitzes, and they got pass rush pressure on 50% of the pass rushes.
It's
Like
insane.
it's the most insane stat. And I don't know how anybody would ever win that game if all you do is rush 4 the whole time and you get pass rush, or I mean a good pass rush on 50% of the dropbacks. Like it's impossible. So yeah, you tell me that stat, and I'm like, oh, it's a dominant game.
And Patrick Mahomes, even when he did have time and was able to set his feet and throw the ball, wasn't getting any help. DeAndre Hopkins with a big drop, Travis Kelce with a couple drops. Travis Kelce's kind of getting lit up on Twitter with some of his plays and lack of blocking, and just didn't really seem to have the want to try to get back into that game. But this is a team that everyone said, like, you can't just let the Chiefs hang around. You got to put a stake through their heart. Mission accomplished for the Philadelphia Eagles in a game where we talked about this last week. They took Saquon out of the game. Saquon got enough carries. He got 26 touches for like 50 some yards. It's it. But they stuck with it. They kept running the football, and Jalen Hurts made the plays necessary, and that's why he's the MVP. Were you happy with him being the MVP? You think it was deserving?
I think a defensive player should have had the MVP, but it would have been so hard to pick one of them. Regardless, again, yes, you're putting up 40. 7 of them were
Pick six.
Pick six, but there was still a few turnovers. I would have liked to have seen a defensive player be able to get it. Maybe even Sweat. Like, I mean, just he seemed to get pressure on every single pass play. But I did like that. Having said that, this is exactly what you and I talked about. This is the second time this year that a team completely sold out of Saquon Barkley will not beat us today. And then Jalen Hurts, one 72 yards rushing in the Super Bowl, the most ever for a quarterback in a Super Bowl. And then he was 17 of 22 for 221 yards. So I'm not gonna give Jalen Hurts about time. Like you get the quarterback who scored 3 touchdowns, and the credit. I'm not. Maybe if there's one more play from a defensive player, if one defensive player had gotten 2 interceptions or something like that, I start really like you could hone in on it. But it was so spread out with so many players on the Eagles defense. I mean, you could give the defensive line of the Eagles the MVP if that was a thing. I think they were the most valuable
Yeah, I
unit or
agree.
player in the entire game. But this is listen, this is a big step for Jalen Hurts. It's what he needed to do. And it was honestly a statement by Kellen Moore as well.
Here we go.
To put together. I mean, I believe after the Super Bowl, Kellen Moore might be the leading head coaching candidate on the market right now.
Really?
There's only one head coaching job.
There's only one head coaching job.
There's only one vacancy. But I believe he is the number 1 candidate. But an incredible game.
Saints fans have to be happy. Like you would have rather seen Kellen Moore's offense put up. Well, we won't even say 44. We'll say 37. But still, 37 points. It could have put up more. They win a Super Bowl. This is what you would want as you've waited out all these candidates, and you're like, "This is our guy. We're waiting until the Super Bowl's over." It's got to be what you want. This is like
for sure
best case scenario.
The funny thing is that halftime, a lot of Saints fans are tweeting out like, "Are we sure we don't need to interview Vic Fangio?" I mean, because he was having like the most dominant game that you could possibly have. So yeah, I mean, Saints fans are happy about what's going to happen with Kellen Moore. It'll be interesting to see. I just want to say too, Saquon Barkley with 2,504 yards this season. He broke Terrell Davis's record. It is the most rushing yards there's ever been in an NFL season. I mean, when you're including the playoffs and regular seasons, everything, that's pretty freaking incredible. I mean, that's absolutely insane. And it is so funny to still like it gets funnier each week to go back and watch the videos of the one guy in the Giants going, "I'm just going to be sick if he signs with the Eagles. We can't do that. We can't let that happen."
Oops.
I wish they would have live streamed that guy watching the Super Bowl.
Or just the entire Mara family wondering what the hell they're thinking. Good Lord. But I don't know much about Jalen Hurts. You know, we know his story. We know how he was Alabama and Tua comes in and he goes to Oklahoma to finish out his college career. And then he gets drafted, second round, I think, by Philadelphia. Yep. And he kind of waits his turn. He gets his shot and he actually turns into being able to get the team to the Super Bowl. But my gosh, can someone tell the PR department in Philadelphia, if you're listening, you're not, that's okay. But if you were, can someone tell the guy it's okay to smile? Like, you just won the Super Bowl and he is just stone-faced, interviewing on the field as the confetti's raining down. I just got to be able to take this in. Okay, sure. But you're allowed to be happy. Like the journey for this year is over and you finished at the top of the mountain holding the trophy. Man, just enjoy it. I feel like that guy just doesn't enjoy anything.
I honestly, I agree with you. And I think Brandon Graham screwed Jalen Hurts so bad. With Jalen Hurts is just about to do the interview.
I did see this.
And Brandon Graham's been in Philadelphia since 2010. He was a number 13 overall pick in round 1. Right before Jalen Hurts is about to do his interview, that maybe he was going to smile and be like, "I'm so thankful for this." And this was Brandon Graham hits him in the back, turns him around. He's like, "You tell them they all doubted you. You tell them what you're about." And I'm like, okay, I mean, let him be. Like Brandon Graham's like mean mugging him and growling at him, and I'm like, I think he got him to where it was tough.
Maybe.
I think it was. I mean, maybe Jalen Hurts was going to go ahead and be his normal scowling self, but it was. I don't know. That was. Yeah, let him enjoy it. And he was supposed to be the "I'm going to Disney World" guy, and I don't think they actually let him say it until the next day.
When he was at Disney World.
Yeah, he's at Disney. But yeah, there's been a bunch of interesting things going on with the Eagles where I don't know what this team's going to be like without Kellen Moore, or what they're going to bring in, or if Vic Fangio can do this again. I'm still not sold on Nick Sirianni being like a great head coach. this is, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and I'll totally be wrong on that. It's impressive how many Super Bowls he's won to, and his regular season record
Yeah.
is super impressive. But we'll see if they can keep this together. But there's also still so many problems that keep popping up between him and AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, and then they act like that they didn't really disagree, and we're like, we all saw it. Like it's, and then he shows up to the post game press conference wearing AJ Brown's high school football jersey. Like, we watched y'all argue in the first quarter or second quarter, whatever it was. Like,
Hey, they won the Super Bowl, man. It's water under the bridge.
It's all better. We're fine, guys.
Well, I'll say this about Nick Sirianni. You know, as a Steeler fan, a lot of Steeler fans wish that Mike Tomlin would have less of his fingerprints on the coaching staff and be more of a CEO type of a head coach. He's going to oversee everything. He's going to let his coordinators coordinate, and he's going to be there to help with the minutia and get everything in order. Maybe that's what Nick Sirianni is good at. You know, I don't know what his background is, if he was a coordinator, if so, what kind of coordinator he was. But I look at John Harbaugh in Baltimore as another great example. The dude was a special teams coordinator. He didn't have any offensive coordinator experience, defensive coordinator experience. He is that type of coach. He's that CEO type, which is, look, you're the OC, you're the DC, do your job, do your job. I'm going to check in. We're going to meet up and make sure the plan is copacetic. But I got to manage this team, and you got to manage your side of the football. If Nick Sirianni is good at that, and whoever the big Italian guy is, what is it, Dom or something, that follows him around with the headset on, what the hell does that guy do? I don't know. But still, if that's Nick Sirianni, okay, that's fine. I guess, you know, not every head coach has to have their hands in everything, I guess.
This is also just, I mean, crazy that, so the Eagles started off 2-2 this year. They should have been 1-3. They beat the Saints by 3 points. And then they beat the Browns by 4. Like, they really could have been 1-4. And after they had lost to the Bucks and then barely beat the Browns, like, there was a lot of talk about, like, they were a loss away from firing Nick Sirianni 5-6 games into the season. Like, it was, I think there was a lot of talk about it. And then the stuff came out with who was and wasn't getting along and all that. And then they went on to, you know, win every game until the Commanders in week 15. So it definitely changed the narrative there.
Yeah.
But pretty bumpy season for them to go through all that. And I mean, really, he was the first coach on the hot seat this year.
Well, if you think back, they only lost one game post-bye. And I guarantee you that there's some Eagles fan, because Eagle fans are insane, that's calling Sports Talk Radio today and saying, Sirianni won it, and he's saying how he doesn't like him and doesn't think he's the right head coach. I guarantee you, like, he's, again, I've said this before, I don't know if it's on this show or another, and I'm not going to take credit for it, but he seems like a guy that is a fan that won a congratulations, you get to be the coach for a year. That's what he seems like on the sideline. Like you said, the AJ Brown stuff. He's had a moments in games where he tries to talk to players and position coaches tell him to go away. He's the head coach. How do you tell him to go away? No, that's what you say. No, you go away. I'm going to talk to my guy. Instead, he's like, oh, okay, you guys are talking. My apologies. I'm going to leave. It's a weird dynamic. We'll just leave it at that. It's a weird dynamic. I thought it was interesting too. These are just little tidbits that I noticed after the game is already decided. Boy, did they dump him with Gatorade early in the game. Like, it was like 2:40 left. Like, we haven't hit the 2-minute warning. They're really.
Well, Kenny Pickett was in the game, so I'm pretty sure. I mean, what is a greater sign of your confidence that you've won the Super Bowl? The Gatorade bath or Kenny Pickett taking snaps?
It's the backup quarterback. You just keep on saying Kenny Pickett as if to just keep twisting the knife in the back, you know. But I get
Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett.
That's true. And he had the gloves on too, because you have to. You never know.
No, it's not too late. I just want to make sure. Did you want to issue a public apology to Jake Elliott? Jake Elliott, who only lost by 6 points himself to the Chiefs. He got outscored by the Chiefs 22-16.
Hey, that dude had a rough year. Okay. You cannot say that I'm alone in doubting Jake Elliott down the stretch. And I told Philly fans that I work with, that I'm near, I'm like, this guy's going to screw y'all over. I hope you know that. And
Harrison
they said
Butker, 0 points. He outscored Harrison Butker 16-0.
No,
that's crazy. That's just crazy.
A lot of people were happy about that today with Harrison Butker. That's neither here. We're not going to get into that discussion.
No,
But
let's not
still.
do that.
But no, for me, I mean, I've watched Jake Elliott miss extra points. He missed short field goals. He missed long field goals. I think this guy is he's going to screw this team over. Hey, he got it. I think playing in a dome helped. Did you hear the report, by the way, playing in a dome? Did you hear the report that the Kansas City Chiefs practice at Tulane and they have a turf field and they had grass brought in and put down? Why?
It's
You're going to be playing a game on turf.
I
Why
can't
would you
tell
put grass down? They put grass over the turf.
There was definitely an advantage to the Eagles being the home team and practicing at the dome instead of just like the Chiefs did get a walkthrough, but didn't get to practice there every day. It's definitely a different thing. It's crazy.
It doesn't make any sense. Why would you have grass put over top of turf when you're playing a game on the turf? And they might say, well, it's because of injuries, but you're going to be playing a game on the turf. Like it's a week of prep. I don't know what the Saints do. I know the Steelers have an indoor facility and multiple outdoor fields, so they practice where they're going to be playing. They're playing on turf.
The Saints have an indoor and outdoor facility at their practice place, but they're all turf.
So even if they're playing on grass that week, they don't have a grass field.
I guess they might have a part of the outside that is. And so just kind of, again, we know we talked about how bad this was for the Chiefs, but Patrick Mahomes led the Chiefs with 25 yards rushing. He had 4 carries. They were all on scrambles, but including his 4 carries, they had 11 total rushes in the game. And if you take away those, they had 7 carries for 24 yards.
Well, look at the time of possession in the first half.
Oh, yeah.
They more than doubled them up. I think it was like 20-10.
Yep.
And it was so they didn't have the football. And if they do have the ball, they're feeling the pressure. They got to change their game plan. Maybe their game plan was Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco. And guess what? You got to abandon that. You're down 17-0 in a blink of an eye. Another interception. Now all of a sudden you're down 24-0. Crazy.
Did the and the Chiefs, like, they didn't cross the 50-yard line until the 2 minutes left in the third, right?
I mean, they didn't. They had 1 first down. They had Juju Smith-Schuster in the first quarter. I don't think they had another first down in the first half.
Did the Chiefs not use Xavier Worthy enough this season? I mean, you're talking about the regular season, 638 yards for the entire 59 catches, 638 yards total for the entire season, only 6 touchdowns. And then you're kind of seeing him go off. He had 287 yards in the postseason.
I'd love to see a chart of, and I don't care enough to do it, but Xavier Worthy's production before Hollywood Brown returned from injured reserve.
Yeah.
And then also before they acquired DeAndre Hopkins at the trade deadline, before the trade deadline. I feel like his production went up and that he actually had a better second half of the year.
For sure. Yeah,
compared to when he was the guy. But hey, I'll tell you this, the Chiefs have some holes on their roster. And, they've got some free agents coming up. They're basically their entire wide receiver room outside of David Worthy are going to be free agents next year. So DeAndre Hopkins is an aging veteran. We know that, but Hollywood Brown's a free agent. Juju Smith-Schuster's a free agent. Some people are thinking Travis Kelce might retire. I don't know if do you believe that?
I think it could happen after this game. I think if they won this, he wouldn't have. But him, the way this game looked and the way he looked during the game, like he looked like he was struggling to get up. Like there was something he was probably dealing with, had to been coming in. But I don't know. He didn't look good. Hair looked great, by the way. Don't want to miss out on that.
Hair, beard, top notch. Taylor approves.
You're also talking about, I mean, obviously there's tons of stuff that's going to be done with restructuring contracts and all. I think Patrick Mahomes is slated to make $66 million this year.
Jeez.
Like obviously his cap's going to be different than that. But before restructures, the Chiefs only have $11.5 million in cap space. And like you said, a lot of holes. Chris Jones is supposed to make 30. Like Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes together are making over $100 million next year. Wow. 101 million, but just those two.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to invest. I'll say this. the Eagles are set up to run it back if they want. I mean, they have some free agents, but it's not nearly the list of Kansas City. And so let's do a wrap up of the Super Bowl and the 2024 regular season / postseason. What'd you think?
The first round was pretty bad of the playoffs, but then after that was a lot of fun. I we didn't talk at all about Josh Allen winning the MVP, by the way, which
No,
we
we
talked
haven't
about
yet.
it a whole lot leading up to it, but didn't talk about that at all. Listen, the a lot of the teams that we expected to be competing in those last, 4 to 6 teams was kind of what we expected. Throwing in the throwing out the Bengals and throwing in the Commanders, maybe. Obviously, they're in different conferences, but there was still some exciting stuff going on. Watching the top team from the regular season tumble with the Detroit Lions and all. But I think it was a lot of fun. We had some exciting games. We had some high scoring games. Normally, I probably wouldn't have liked a Super Bowl that was 34-0, but in this instance, with all the talk about the Chiefs and the referees going up, I thought it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed the game. I think it would have been a fun atmosphere to be at it. For a neutral site game, thought the Eagles fans represented really well and were loud, came through on TV. But it was good. This is what the playoffs are supposed to be. It's a long time until I mean, we've got a draft, but then it's a long time before we get a real football game again. What did you think about the playoffs, and who is your prediction to win the UFL championship this year, Jeff?
The UFL is like live golf. I've watched 0 minutes of my life of either entity, but still.
Oh, we're not doing the show about UFL in the next few weeks.
No, I don't think
It's not
so.
going to be okay.
Let me say this: I thought this season, if not just the postseason, but the season in itself, I can't remember a league year before where it felt like the haves and the have-nots were so far away from each other. And you had this, we talked about when we talked draft order towards the end of the regular season. We're like, man, like all these teams with 2 and 3 and 4 wins are just log jammed at the bottom. And then there was a really big gap. And then you had the teams at the top who are considered the elite of the elite. Not a lot in the middle. This year did not scream parity for me with the National Football League. You had more games. You're like, yeah, they're going to win. Like we know this. And that actually did happen. Very few games where you were shocked by the outcome. Like, oh my gosh, did you hear about that? So I don't think the league is upset about that, but I do think for a league that always says, we are a parity driven league, not so much this year. We'll see what 2025 has in store. So I do want to say before we call it a show, this show is going to continue. It's not going to be called For Your Viewing Pleasure. It's going to be called The Way We See It. And it's going to open up the door for Wesley and I to continue to just have fun and rail off about whatever we want that's related to the National Football League. We'll talk probably maybe about some NFL honors, which we totally forgot to mention. So we can talk about that next week. We could talk about, anything related to the draft, free agencies coming up. The tampering period starts on March 10th. The league year starts on March 12th. That's going to be here before you know it. So, Wesley, what are your final thoughts, man?
Man, it's good. I'm glad the Chiefs didn't win this after all the talk we had. I would like to talk to you next week if we can about what's your playoff team that's least likely to be in the playoffs next year, and then who
Voice Jeff Voice is a terrible towel
besides the Steelers. But no, great season. I'd love to still interact with all of y'all on Twitter and X. We'll have a good time, and it's going to be a long off season, so let's all try and stay sane and enjoy the draft. Any final thoughts from you, Jeff?
Plug your stuff before I do my
stuff.
Yeah,
you can find me on X at @HoodatWesley13. I follow talk about the Dome Patrol podcast on all your podcast streaming networks. It's at Dome Patrol PCast on X. Jeff, where can we find you in your Steelers hunt for a quarterback? I believe y'all are trying to convert a running back to quarterback this year. Is that the offseason goal?
Everything's on the table. As Mike Tomlin says, we're going to put 8 pounds in a 7-pound bag. So that's what we're going to do this offseason. So for me, if you want to hear more of that Steelers coverage, you can go to Steel Curtain Network, wherever you get your podcasts, and any other platform, YouTube, etc. Find me on Twitter at jhartman, HERTMAN_PIT for my thoughts on everything from the great game of golf to the Pittsburgh sports. So take it easy. Yeah, Wesley, man, it's been a lot of fun. We'll talk next week. The way we see it. We'll see how that pans out, man. Take it easy.
See you next week.